To pass the real estate exam, you have to look past the simple question of who an agent is helping. You must analyze the specific scope of their work, whether they have the principal's permission, and who carries the legal liability for their actions. We categorize these details using the who, scope, permission framework. Applying in these three criteria will allow you to properly classify any real estate scenario you encounter on the test. This diagram outlines the simplest agency relationship. We have a single agent connected to a single client, hired to achieve one specific goal. Because this is restricted to a one-and-done transaction, they are a special agent. This classification applies equally to a buyer's agent, seller's agent, tenant's agent, and landlord's agent. While this baseline is clear, exam scenarios often introduce variables like extended timelines or additional parties to test your ability to distinguish between different agency levels. We introduce the first variable when a real estate role requires an ongoing, continuous relationship, rather than a single transaction. The prime example of this is property management. A continuous blue loop represents a property manager operating with ongoing authority within the limits of their property management agreement. We define this ongoing scope as a general agent. Side by side with the special agent, it provides a direct visual contrast of their durations. Next is dual agency. A single central agent represents both the buyer and the seller in the exact same transaction. Despite having two clients, the green boundary confirms a dual agent is still a special agent, strictly limited to that single transaction. The number of clients does not determine the agency classification. The scope, how long or broad the granted authority is, dictates whether an agent is special or general. Legal liability becomes more complex when an agent delegates specific tasks to another professional. A sub-agent works under the primary agent with explicit permission. The red highlights show both the principal and agent carry legal liability. However, a broker's agent is hired without permission. Watch the highlights. The principal turns gray, and only the primary agent holds liability. Apply this to a scenario. Agent Sarah hires Tom to help with a listing, but she does it without the seller's knowledge or permission. Tom makes an error on the paperwork. Who is liable? Because the seller gave no permission, Tom is acting as a broker's agent. Sarah alone holds the liability. The rule is that liability follows permission. This diagram introduces the major exception to agency, the finder or middleman. Their sole function is to introduce two parties without representing the interests of either side. The active duty of representation is the dividing line. If you represent someone's interests, you are an agent with legal liabilities. If you only make introductions, you are a non-agent finder. You can test your mastery of scope, permission, and representation by applying them to a compound timeline. Consider this scenario. A professional manages an apartment complex for 2 years. Later, they introduce that same landlord to a buyer for a separate, unlisted property, immediately stepping back from the deal entirely. What two distinct roles did this professional play? In the first role, managing the complex with an ongoing scope makes them a property manager, which is a general agent. In the second role, introducing the parties with no active representation makes them a finder, which is a non-agent. This color-coded matrix consolidates those specific rules into a final cheat sheet. Most transaction roles are special agents. Property managers are general agents. Finders are non-agents. Sub-agents have permission, making the principal liable, and broker's agents lack permission, leaving the agent liable. Above the matrix, we lock in our structural headers: who, scope, and permission. Rely on this framework whenever a scenario becomes complex. Applying these mechanical rules of authority and liability provides a consistent logic for navigating multifaceted agency scenarios on the exam.